Welcome back to another video. One of the things that I want to show you today is how to diagnose an iPad that's not turning on. So let's get started. Now, there's typically three things that cause an iPad to not turn on. Either it's dead because something's wrong with the charge port, the battery itself has gone bad, or there's an issue with the motherboard, like a short or something else, maybe water damage, who knows. Today we're going to start by diagnosing this from the outside to see if we can figure out where to go from there. And if we need to, we'll open it up and I'll share some of my tips and tricks on how to do that. We'll first start by testing the charge port. All right, so the first thing that I'll do is we'll plug it in, and hard to see, but I get 0.6 on my draw over here. So it is taking some amount of power, but we don't get any image. We can test the charge port real quick as well to see if there's an issue with any of those lines by plugging this in, and it'll run a test for us. And you can see right here, it comes back with everything looking good. One thing I'm noticing though is it is a little loose, so it might have something to do with that. If you don't have one of these, you can always get one of these. And with the multimeter, you'll be able to determine if one of those lines is bad. So let's open this guy up and see if we can figure it out. Now, there's a bunch of different ways to open this up. You can put it on a heat mat, a heat gun. One thing I'm noticing as well is a slight bend here. And on the other side, we've got a dent here, a dent there, which might be a bend in the motherboard because the motherboard sits right here. That being said, I'm going to show you a few different methods. I'm going to show you one of my methods to opening up an iPad. For this method, I'm going to take a little bit of packing tape and we're going to come over here and I'll stick it on the back close to the edge so that has no wrinkles or anything in it. This will allow suction cups to stick better, and we'll clamp these guys down and we'll start to put a little bit of squeeze on this, and with this particular guy I can lock it in place like that and let just some natural tension start to take place on that. While I wait to see a little gap separate, because it eventually will open, I'm going to be using this little plastic sheet. These plastic sheets are the OCA protectors. They're extremely useful in several different types of repairs. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a gap starting to appear right here where the glass is starting to lift. Keeping that tension, I'll be able to insert the plastic and slice through the adhesive. This is the way to do it cold. Now you can always apply some heat and do this, but this is the method I use to open up iPads all the time without breaking the glass, and I save the adhesive, and there's a bunch of other reasons I like to do it this way. If the glass was broken, this would be a completely different story. I would be opening it a completely different way. Move the suction cup and continue around until I've got the digitizer off. Once I've got enough of a gap, I'll just stick my finger in there to hold it open. We'll take off this, and I'll just keep my fingers there, applying some tension as we go and work around the corners. Now, the corners are obviously the hardest spot because of the thicker adhesive, but with some wiggling, you'll get cut right through it. All right, eventually we'll make it to the other corner. Now we can turn over to this side. I can tell that I'm the first one in this iPad, which is nice. And we'll just do the same going around this way. Now I have to be really careful. There's a tiny chip in the glass there. I have to really be careful not to put any pressure or strain on that area so it doesn't crack. In this case, I'm going to use a drop of isopropyl alcohol on the corner to help the plastic slide around a little bit. Hopefully I can do this without cracking the glass. Plastic is thin enough that it typically doesn't put enough pressure or tension on the glass to crack it. And the edge of it kind of acts like a razor blade, cutting it through the adhesive, typically leaving it either on the digitizer or on the frame. And we'll cut right through that area and work our way towards the home button and up the side here. All right, now that I'm through to the corner, we should be able to gently let some tension just undo this back side here. And we'll let it we'll lift it, and slowly the LCD will separate as well. It's got a little bit of some foam adhesive that goes around holding it to the digitizer. We're almost there. If you look really closely, you'll see the foam separate fully and the display snap back down just like that. All right, so now I'm going to come in and gently use the edge of the plastic to help assist the adhesive so that it splits cleanly away from the frame. All right, I'm just going to rest the digitizer against something so it doesn't flop open. And one of the first places I like to check are these screws, and they are not tight at all. After tightening those down, I like to check to see if we have any change in the charge port. If that's why it's loose, it's typically those screws right there. I'm still getting 0.6 on that one, and nothing's appearing on the screen, and it's not an issue with the backlight because I'd still see something. Be really faint, but I could see it. And I don't see any plug me in symbol. So let's take out the 4 screws that are holding the LCD down. And once we have those out, I'll take a pair of tweezers and gently get under the edge of the white part of the backlight and slowly pry and let it split from the silicone that's holding it down. And then that corner will pop up, and we'll do the same to the other corner. If you rush this part, you can crack the LCD. Happened one time, and it'll never happen again. Years ago. It was the first time I'd ever seen an iPad that had that at the top. They didn't do that until I think the 6th gen, 5th gen, I can't remember. And it'll come out. And then the same happens with the bottom, but if you just slowly lift, it'll split from them, and you can even just put a little bit of tugging power and you can pull it away without damaging the LCD. All right, the first thing I like to look for is any rippling in the battery. There's a couple little ripples, nothing that's crazy concerning, but we'll go ahead and disconnect the display from the motherboard. We'll take out the 3 screws, pop up the shield, and we can disconnect the display. I'm going to also tighten these screws. They're pretty tight. And we've already read that there's no issue with the charge port with our tool. So, and now that things are tight, we can also test it again. Plug it in, run the test, and everything comes back saying it's normal. All right, for fun, let's go ahead and use this guy to test, see if we've got an issue. All right, so we'll put our red probe here. We should be getting readings. It's typically OL 0.377. So that's all good. Now it's time to look at the motherboard. What I like to do first is disconnect and remove the digitizer so that we don't get any fingerprints or anything on it. Lifted up the latch for the home button, slide it out, pop off the little rubber guy right there for later. And if there's any adhesive, now is a good time to help it along the way. And we'll set this aside with the display. Now getting the motherboard out of these isn't too difficult. We'll just take out the 3 screws at the top and pop off the bracket. Now we can disconnect the camera, the front camera, and the microphones and headphone jack. Take out the battery screw. Now this battery screw really isn't as important on this model to worry about when and if you're taking it out. You definitely need to worry about on the pros, otherwise you're going to ruin the backlight or touch diodes. We'll go ahead and disconnect the coax cables. Now we can peel them up nice and slowly all the way across. We'll lift up this sticker and gently peel it back. That way we can disconnect the speakers from the flex there. Disconnect the other one. Disconnect the connector that goes over here for the accessories. And now we can deal with the power button and the volume buttons. Peel up the little stickers. Flip up the flaps on the zip connectors. And once those are both out, we'll take out the bottom 2 screws for the charge port. Now I like to take a little bit of isopropyl alcohol under the flex here, about the charge port, and carefully lift it up. Now we'll add some isopropyl alcohol under the board, basically anywhere we have access to the edges. Now some models you have to look out for other cables, but this one's that simple. We'll just take a high tool and go under the motherboard and let the tension and alcohol lift this board out for us. And over a short period of time, it'll pop up through the adhesive there. And we'll do the same at the top, letting the isopropyl alcohol lift it on up for us. a little bit of tension and it'll come out. Now the first thing that I like to test is just the battery connector. You can see here we've got two big prongs on both sides of the hole. One is positive and one is negative. And we should be getting a 0.475 with my multimeter. We are, which means that there's not a short on the battery line. It might just be that this iPad sat for so long that the battery died completely to the point where it won't want to take a charge, so we can force it to take a charge. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think might be the issue? Is it a TriStar issue? Is it a battery issue? Is it a motherboard issue? All right, so what we're going to do real quick is we're going to try to basically jump start this battery. If you look at the data that it gives you on here, we've got a 3.73 volt battery, which means on my power supply, I'm going to turn it to right around that number. And with the multimeter, if you're confused at which one is the ground and which one's the positive side of the battery connector, you can always check the motherboard by testing which pin makes contact with ground. In this case, the lower one is. So we'll put our black probe on there, which is our negative side, and we'll put our positive side on the plus one, and it is drawing power. You can see right now it's going from 3.8, 3.6, 3.5. Basically, I'm going to do this for a short period of time, no longer than 30 seconds. We're basically feeding this battery, force feeding it power. All right, we are down to 2.5, which is probably a good place to stop to see if we have any life out of this iPad motherboard. We don't need the digitizer just yet. We'll put back the motherboard more or less aligned. I'm going to throw in a little divider here for the battery connector. We'll grab our display and we'll connect it up, and then we'll pop out the battery connector, press it down. All right, connect it up, the power button. Now we'll compress down the battery connector and we'll see if we get any life out of this iPad. None there. Let's see what happens if we plug it in. And put back the battery screw. Nothing. And let's plug it in. And we still get 0.6 draw. All right, I've got my old TriStar tester. Go ahead and run a test on the Flex and the TriStar. It says the charge port is okay. And now it'll run its TriStar test. See if the charging IC is the culprit. And it says it's testing the battery as well. Thinks it's missing, but we get a pass for TriStar. So TriStar is fine, charge port is fine. It says a battery is missing. So is it just a bad battery? How do we determine that? Let me show you one way we can do that. All right, for this, it's quite simple. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to line up my probes here, and I'm going to prompt it to boot these two pins here, the first two coming in from the inside to the outside, and we're getting 0.02. We're going to try this a different way. On the back here, there are a couple probe spots, and we still hang at 0.02. Maybe we have a dead CPU, an issue with NAND, hard to say. Has anyone seen this before? Let me know in the comments below what you think. All right, so I need your help to figure out this one. Have you seen this type of reading on a power supply before? Is it a CPU issue? Is it a NAND issue? Or do you think it could be something else? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks a ton for watching. We'll see you in the next video.